Back to our top story as we continue tracking reaction to yesterday's outcomes at the ANC's 55th National Conference. In fact, Action SA says the re-election of Cyril Ramaphosa as ANC president is no victory for the country. Ramaphosa, of course, beats Zweli Mkhize for the top post at the conference, which is currently underway in Newzroom. The opposition party also says South Africa must remove the criminal organization, which, of course, is a reference to the ANC, from power. For more on this, let's bring in Action SA's leader, Herman Mashaba, who joins us via our video link early on this Tuesday morning. Great to have you on the program, sir. Thanks as always for agreeing to speak to Newzroom Afrika. It's almost expected, of course, that the opposition will note the outcomes of the ANC's conference and add on what opposition parties typically add on, which is a critique of the leadership of the organization. That aside for a moment, let me just get your take on how you reckon this conference is actually fared and whether you think the ANC is better off with a Cyril Ramaphosa versus a Zweli Mkhize at the helm.
No, first of all, thank you very much, and then good morning to the listeners. I think if anyone expected anything positive out of the ANC, that person must be living in another planet. I think if you really look at how ANC has managed this country for the last 28 years, how ANC has recently been unable to really run their own organization. And let's then go back to the last few days. Look at how chaotic their conferences. And these are the very same people that you expect they can actually fix the country. I think someone must really be living in another planet. So, for us as Action SA, our position has always been very clear that we don't really believe there are two factions of the ANC. There's one faction of the ANC, which is a criminal enterprise. And if South Africans would expect this criminal enterprise to fix South Africa, then we must accept the consequences thereof.
Of course, there's a renewed focus now on 2024, now that this conference is by and large behind us, it being the last day of the particular gathering. And in the lead up to 2024, there's going to be a lot of conversations around coalition governments. That's where opposition discussions get into the fray. From your first take of this top 7 leadership, is this a group of leaders that you reckon Action SA would be willing to work with in the event that you may have to?
Over my dead body, and I think it's a very loaded statement. There's just no way that Herman Mashaba would be associated with a criminal enterprise. I think, for me, as I get older and really look at the sad state of what happened to my country, there's just no way that I would really take a chance of being associated with a criminal enterprise. You look at the top 7, from the president downwards. These are the people responsible for looting our country, mismanaging it. And how does one actually get involved with them? These are people with absolutely no shame whatsoever in their criminal activity. So, for us as Action A, we are confident to emerge as one of the biggest parties, if not the second biggest party, probably could get even be the biggest political party. In the event that the only way you can form a government the only way you can form a government is with the A. For us as Action SA, we are warning South Africans in advance that let's rather go for election rerun, because no one can expect us to go into a coalition with a criminal enterprise.
All right, so this is you saying to us this morning that in the event that the only way that Action SA can govern is by having some kind of agreement with the ANC, you're willing to walk away from that?
Over my dead body, that I would not really want to co-govern anything with the ANC. I would really work with the ANC as an opposition, because that's where we are going to relegate them in 2024 to the opposition benches.
All right. Now that Cyril Ramaphosa has gotten the second term, there are people who are suggesting that perhaps, just perhaps, he may actually follow through on many of the reforms that he started around rooting out corruption, etc., etc. And that's mostly because the thinking here is that he doesn't have an interest in getting back into power after this. Are you as optimistic as those people?
I think if anyone would ever think that Cyril Ramaphosa will have interest in running this country and running it properly, this is the man who got into business, into parliament, into government already with the white industry and captains of industry, making him a billionaire. So he had no reason whatsoever to really get involved in the Phala scandal, running government as a side business. his being to sell Angolas and buffaloes. He had no reason to really get involved in money laundering, not having confidence in our law enforcement agencies, not having interest in the South African. You can imagine the president of the country not having confidence in the South African rands, that his business is dealt through using US dollars. The man who's been turned into a billionaire without actually working for him. So I think what right now is going to happen, you will see he's going to take corruption to another level, because obviously he's not going to get another chance to go for a third term. For me, my expectation is that Cyril Ramaphosa is going to get more involved in Angolas and buffaloes, and probably even look for other animals, because it looks like his interest lies in farming, because that's where he believes he can make more money.
That's interesting. My understanding is that you too have a business on the side. If you were able to be elected president, can we expect you to let that go?
Well, I think I've been a businessman for over 40 years. I started my business when the apartheid government said at the age of 22 that I could not start business. And I started official business running an industry. I can tell you proudly that I was one of the biggest black industrialists before I turned 80, producing products, supplying them to the shops, so people know how I made my money, and I keep making my money. So right now, yes, I'm no longer running business. My family is responsible for that. Right now, I'm using my privileged position to save society. So for me, making money, I'm a capitalist, and unapologetic capitalist. That's why, for me, the sooner I can remove ANC from government so that I can go back into the private sector, because the work that I'm doing, being a politician, is a work I hate. It's a tough, brutal job. Right now, I'm talking to you from
Oh dear. What a pity. I'm told he's in Polokwane. That's the word he didn't necessarily manage to finish. But I guess with that being said, it's worth thanking Herman Mashaba, who's the leader of Action SA. The thrust of his sentiment around this top 7 has been communicated loud and clear. He said, "Over my dead body," twice. Would he ever work with the ANC, given his sentiments around this particular organization? Interesting remarks, given how we anticipate the 2024 elections are likely to pan out, if the local government elections in 2019 are anything to go by. But in his absence, Herman Mashaba, leader of Action SA, thanks very much indeed.